Hi everyone. So welcome to our webinar, which is specifically talking about the retail sector today, and a sector that's had quite a tough time of it in the last few months. Well, a lot of us have had a tough time of it in the last few months, but retail sector, one of the toughest hit probably, with the closures of stores and the high streets not being able to open. So yeah, we wanted to do a little piece on that as we rebuild and recover from the pandemic, and talk to some experts about it, and get their thoughts and opinions. So alongside me today, so I'm Dan Crowther, CEO of Thorne Widgery Accountants, based in Hereford and Ludlow, and alongside me I've got John Jones of Philip Morris and Son in Hereford, and Louise Little of Hus Hem, based in Ledbury. Two what I would call destination shops in their respective towns, and both with interesting stories to kind of share and tell, and different experiences and insights. So I'm hoping we'll get quite a lot of information from those guys today, and there'll be some takeaways to share with everyone. So welcome guys, first of all. Thanks for being here and spending your time with us.
Morning, Dan.
And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to launch straight into kind of questioning you, if that's all right, and getting the benefit of your valuable experience. So if I'll start with you, John, if that's okay, and you would just talk a little bit about what happened, I suppose. So lockdown happened and the high streets closed. So what's your story there? I'm aware you closed like everybody else, but how did it affect you immediately?
Throughout March, we were on a gradual downturn that we were running about a third below what we would normally expect to take by the time lockdown actually came, which was essentially the result of people avoiding the town, avoiding contact, and then, like all retailers, I kind of sat watching Boris's statement with absolute horror at 8 o'clock at night, before then sort of contacting the staff that weren't all trying to contact me simultaneously, say, yeah, in most cases don't come in tomorrow, or in two cases do come in, just to tidy up and get everything battened down. We then obviously have been closed all the way through until Tuesday of this week, when we reopened. The hardware part of the store could have been open during that time. It was on the essential list, but the reality was that the footfall in the town was so low that we just wouldn't have taken enough money to justify opening the doors, and so we remained closed. The flip side of that is that from the beginning of March, when people started avoiding the town and stopped shopping in physical stores, the online side of our business really started to take an upwards turn, and as soon as lockdown came, it did so even more so. So we've had a very, very positive experience with the online part of the business, and we've had to bring a lot of the staff back in that were furloughed from the shop to work on the online part of the business throughout. So overall, we've had a very positive experience despite the shop being closed.
Great. How about you, Louise? Is it similar? Is it different? How has it affected you guys?
Slightly different to John, that the footfall dropped off probably a lot later, being in a small market town rather than in the city. That we didn't really notice a tail off until the Saturday before lockdown. That was the significant drop. But up to that point, we'd been incredibly lucky. I think people maybe have been avoiding going to the larger towns and come out for a sort of a day out in the little pretty Ledbury, because maybe it just felt a bit safer, and so it didn't affect us until a little bit later on. I got another week probably out of it than maybe the cities did. Boris's statement, we knew what was coming. We'd been travelling around Europe, actually. We'd done 7 flights only a few weeks previously, and had actually been drinking alongside the Hong Kong Trade Association, which was quite funny. So we'd been in I suppose the thick of it, not realising really that we'd been in we'd been in Paris and Frankfurt only weeks before, when there was probably quite a bit of it about. But
I assume is that buying stock?
Buying, yeah, we were buying. Very strangely, actually, maybe we must have known something. We did 3 or 4 shows back to back, which we don't normally do, with three of us, so myself and two of my staff. And we actually did a lot of Christmas buying, which we don't normally do. We normally go do that quite a lot later. So maybe there was something that we were onto it. So we locked down on the Friday. Obviously, I had one member of staff who was pregnant, who came in on the Tuesday and literally just packed up her bag, and we said just go, because Boris had said that they might be at slightly elevated risk. And then I sat here with my colleague, and we had a bit of a laugh about it. And it was like, you can drag your computer down underneath your arm and go home. And we had a plan that we'd get everything done for Christmas. We'd be ahead of the game. We'd use the time really effectively to get everything done. It was quite exciting. We were thinking this is going to be quite positive for us. It's just think of all these things that we never have time to do. And then we obviously locked the keys to the door. Website was still running. And then on Monday, it was pretty obvious that we were not going to have time to do all those little things, because the online just rocketed, really.
So, yeah, just stick with you, Lucy. Did you find it literally just turned on, the online just turned on straight away immediately? It wasn't, there was no particular...
It was pretty instantaneous, actually, that we had a product that seemed to be in quite sudden demand, because it seemed to be in the press everywhere about the thing to do. And we just happened to have always sold this product in just a small quantity, but we've always loved them. They've always entertained us, and we've always had a section of the shop, because it's something that I just find nice to buy, and it seemed to be the thing that every time you saw on social media, someone was doing it, or on Twitter or whatever, and that was jigsaws.
Right. Okay. So that's they just took off, did they? And
it was great fun. Yeah, it was brilliant. But if I had known, I mean, we had put in a large order previously, but if I had known, it would have been a lot larger, let's put it that way, because of course it became pretty obvious quickly that actually I'm not the only supplier doing jigsaws. There's a huge amount, and everybody was trying to get the small pot of jigsaws that were left here, because most of them are printed in China, so supply issues. And where we buy them from, many sources, but our largest source was the States. So although I'm a Scandinavian retailer, they have a particular look, the jigsaws that I did, but it got to the point where, I was just trying to get anything. Yeah.
And John, did you find it the same? Did you notice the kind of spike in web traffic or web sales immediately, or was there a lag, or how did that work for you?
There were signs there in March that it was starting to really take an upturn, and it was tracking ahead of last year. What we noticed as soon as we went into lockdown is that we are generally strong on our country clothing and footwear side online. That's where we do most of our sales. But there was a huge spike suddenly in everything from our domestic side, particularly sort of anything home baking or garden based. That we had this very good weather early in the year. And so our sort of garden furniture and barbecues and so on, that we just had forward orders that in theory would have lasted the whole summer, were gone through in just days. And home baking has just continued to be immensely strong all the way through.
I guess that's that what I would class as an accountant is your sales mix. So your sales mix has changed in terms of more people are at home doing baking and gardening and doing puzzles. So those, for you guys, all of those things kind of came to the front immediately. Have you had, so just kind of touching on that, so with that kind of stock being used up so quickly, Have you had issues getting stock in? So you know, to either replace that, or have you just completely sold out? How's that happen? If I go back to you, Louise, on that.
Yes, we had major issues. We were putting in large orders, which normally would turn around. I think if we ordered on a Wednesday, we'd have them by the following Wednesday, normally, something like that. We got an order in before a certain time, and we've never had an issue. But of course, there were no air freight slots. All these come from on cargo planes, and everything was coming by air freight. They just became gold dust. So we'd have a huge amount of jigsaws sat on pallets and pallets of jigsaws waiting to come to the UK via the distributor in the UK who works out of Coventry. We knew they were there. They were sitting on the tarmac and couldn't get a slot. The difficulty there is we'd sold most of them. Like you know, we'd put them online, and we put a pre-order date on them. We'd put 7 to 14 days, because people were just buying boxes of them. So we knew that they were coming. We just couldn't say a specific date. We did have another major issue with a single supplier. Luckily, we'd done a large order for these beautiful Danish jigsaws. They're stunning. And we sold out of those within days. I mean, literally days, because they had left the warehouse. We had tracking all the way, and they were just about to arrive, and they vanished. And we'd actually sold those. Those were sold and they vanished. And they actually turned up going all the way back to Denmark again. They did locate them. So we had terrible problems, but do you know what? People were absolutely fantastic about it. We contacted all our customers and just said, look, they're coming. We explained the situation. And every single person just said, there's far more important things going on at the minute than me worrying about a jigsaw. So it was fantastic. And in a way, I almost think it was a slight positive thing, because we got to a bit more interaction with our customers. They tended to sometimes add more to the order because they could wait, and they knew that suddenly that these things were going to be in demand, so they added to their order. And it was great fun. I mean, I had jigsaws produced in Finland. They actually opened up some machinery for me to make me some jigsaws. So I was wheeling and dealing in jigsaws. I mean, I was dreaming, the staff were dreaming about jigsaws, but I've got to mention one agent called Karen, and this is a valuable lesson to anybody out there, I had every single morning, I'd be sat here where I am now, waiting for an email to come in from an agent called Karen, who was incredible. Now, she would send me the stock list of what was available.
Yeah.
And I always felt that she was definitely on the small independent trader side. The big boys were not hearing about these things first. The John Lewis's, the Amazons, the Waterstones. I just felt that I was getting that little edge ahead, and I could get that order in within seconds before anyone else. And she kept me going. She really did. Out of everything, I think these last 12 weeks, well, it tailed off because she didn't have any stock either to tell me about, but she kept us afloat. One.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. We should probably say that you do sell more than jigsaws normally.
I do sell. In fact, jigsaws are probably one of my smallest, which is why it's so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you said to anybody, what does Hus Hem sell, they will probably not say jigsaws.
No, that's what I mean. Absolutely, it's a kind of unique situation.
Yeah.
And for you, John, did you have issues? Sounds like you would have had similar sort of issues. Is that right? Or in stock supply and getting it in?
Yes, supply chain was definitely an issue. Virtually everybody to start with that we were still trying to buy from was a lot slower. Some of them then kind of did gear back up fairly quickly. We're still getting very slow deliveries with a lot of them. Like customer expectation though is very much been that everything will be slower. And what we found is that stock availability is really sort of, stock availability and convenience has been trumping price. That people really aren't too worried as long as they can get it. They're just desperate to get hold of stuff.
Yeah, so the supply chain's still slower at the moment. Is it speeding back up and it's easing off? Is it, or where are we?
It depends on the supplier. We've got about 180 suppliers in total, of which we've only been buying from a small number, and it's kind of fluctuating all over. Some are actually still getting worse because they've had, factories in long-term lockdown, and we've got a French cookware brand that once they close down the refinery or whatever it is, takes a long time to get back up. So yeah, we've got some still getting worse, some now pretty much back to normal.
Same for you, Louise. It's a similar sporadic mix.
Yeah, very similar. Same as John, really. In a way, we were lucky because I deal with mainly Scandinavian countries, and they were not hit so badly as the rest of Europe, apart from Sweden, but they didn't lock down. But the Danes, who we deal with a lot, were pretty on it, really. In fact, it's only now that we're actually finding some issues with a couple of suppliers. They seem to be okay until last week. But it's all fine. I haven't really struggled. It was only the actual getting it from A to B. I could place all the orders, but just a few issues. But like John, we just concentrated on 2 or 3 products. It was down to 2 or 3, and we were incredibly lucky that we had 2 or 3. The only thing is, I wish the biggest one had been higher value.
Sorry, go on, John.
Our biggest supply chain issue is actually going to be for the coming winter, that we forward order a huge amount of clothing for the winter, and we're getting a lot of suppliers telling us we're not going to be able to fulfill all your orders. They can't necessarily tell us what they're going to be short by yet, and so we don't know whether we're going to be massively short of stock because it hasn't arrived, or massively overstocked because people aren't buying that kind of product. So we're in a bit of a catch-22 in terms of how to plan.
Yeah, we're the same. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I guess it's just uncertainty, isn't it? That's the thing that is difficult to manage.
And the suppliers want to know numbers earlier because they don't want to overproduce either.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Still before we just kind of get past it, I guess lockdown happened. Everyone panicked. We spoke to all of our businesses at the time, and there was a range of kind of emotions and kind of what they could do and what they could focus on. One of the things that we tried to speak to everybody about was at that particular point, which I know you guys would have done as well, is just look at the finances. So, just to get everybody, make sure everybody's comfortable, that they know they're going to be okay and where they are. Is that an exercise that you did? Did you look at your cash flow? Did you measure anything particularly at that time? If I start with you, John, is there anything that you did differently on that right at the beginning?
We keep a fairly close eye on our figures throughout, and as lockdown happened, I had worked out that if we had to stop trading on the web as well, we'd got enough cash to last about 3 weeks before we were in big trouble, which was a little scary. But then actually the opposite turned out to be true, and the web just started running away, and actually our cash position has improved enormously as a result, rather than sort of us running out in just a couple of weeks' time as I feared. We've been able to watch the numbers carefully as we've gone through, and actually seen most KPIs go the right direction, which is very pleasing. Yeah,
absolutely. I'll touch on kind of key performance indicators, KPIs, in just a second. But for you, Louise, is that did you look at, everyone I spoke to at the start was what's going to happen? Was that the same for you?
Do you know what? It seems like so long ago.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so weird. I wish I'd taken more note of how I felt about it now, because it does feel like forever ago. But I had a sort of I was quite philosophical about it, really. I wasn't in a panic mode. I just thought that we would actually be working 3 days a week. We decided that we'd have 2 teams, and we'd do a Monday, Wednesday and a Friday for the website. And I actually was quite looking forward to having a bit of time off. I'll be perfectly honest, I did. I just thought this could be quite a nice little, we'll keep it ticking over. You were incredibly helpful. You were very hands-on. You phoned. We had a sheet put through for our cash flow to fill it out. As you will imagine, I did that, Dan.
Yes, I'm sure.
I looked at it. But I think I was in a lucky position that I didn't have to worry about the cash. I knew that we could sustain this. I had already done my figures on a scrap of paper. That I knew what I would have to take. I knew what to take to just cover the basics, just to cover the rent.
Yeah, I guess we both have. By the way, just for anyone listening, I didn't ask Louise to say any of those nice things, so she hasn't.
It was very good, very good. I did not feel alone.
But just on that, I guess for both businesses, for yours respectively, you had the alternative source of income, didn't you? So you weren't relying completely on the shop being open.
Yeah.
So and I was going to use the term fortunate. I don't know if I did use the term fortunate. It's not really fortunate. It's a plan that you put together, and
I think we were fortunate. I think I was really, I'd say, lucky, because there was no judgment. It was pure luck. I mean, I just happened to have a product that I could tap into, but also.
Yeah, maybe the product mix, maybe, but I mean, what you've gone through in the years before to kind of build that website presence and your online presence, I mean, that isn't a result of luck, in my opinion, anyway. It's just that's a result of a lot of hard work and effort gone in the past to kind of put you where you are. Obviously, which products went well and which didn't. That's you've got a range of products, which I would also say is kind of planning, to cater for different things. So, it's one of those things that. It's been okay for you, but I'm not. I would say more judgment rather than luck, or perhaps that's my own assessment of it. So if we focus on that, because I think it's really important that we've spoke about kind of how this shift to online has happened just by absolute complete necessity, more than anything else in the last couple of months, and that's one of the things that both of you focus on. In terms of, it's both for both of you, John, it's been busier. I'm right in saying it's been busier than normal on that. Compared with the same months last year, or what you'd be predicting for this year, it's been an awful lot busier.
Yeah, enormously. Like online, taking the first 2 months of the financial year for us, we're up 149%. So a significant growth, and in a time of year when we don't really expect to grow particularly, we're far stronger at growing the winter season. That's been a huge bonus for us.
Yeah, absolutely, and same story for you, isn't it, Louise? Up.
Yeah, it's been fantastic, and I mean, thank God for it, because the staff have just been amazing, because we're a really small team here, and without having the staff to fall back on, really, I mean, if we'd all been in situations where I might not have had any staff, if there was anyone who had to shield or anything like that, I mean, it was literally down to 3 of us. There were just 3 of us who could run it. Okay. So we went from, half our staff, but double the amount of work. So it's been quite interesting, really. Yeah, just 2 of us on site, 1 in each building. I don't know if anyone knows the setup of Hus Hem, but we've got the shop here, and then just 1 building away, really, we had a very small warehouse, which a retail space, which I used to have, which I shut down to turn it into the warehouse, a little warehouse for Hus Hem. So we could isolate ourselves up here quite easily in our own little bubble, and in fact, we loved it.
Yes. With that, and you touched on it a second ago, John, about KPIs or key performance indicators on the business. So again, as an accountant, there's things kind of that I bang on about, that looking at and measuring and seeing how you're doing and taking actions to affect them and all of that type of stuff. And I know that John, you look at that quite a lot. Is that, with your business, did you look at different things, different KPIs during the period, or was there a set number that you look at that you kind of measure and they're the key ones, whatever happens? Like, how does that work for you?
Yeah, we have kind of set ones that we measure and we rely on. That obviously there's sort of headline turnover and bottom line and growth and all that sort of thing. But probably the interesting ones through the period have been some of them around the customer behaviour. That conversion rate has shot through the roof on the website. So that's for the number of people that visit the website, how many of them actually converted to customers. And we'd normally expect it to be bobbling along at around about 2% at this time of year. And it normally shoots up to sort of getting towards 4% as you come into Christmas and everyone's in a bit of a frenzy of buying. We've been sitting at 4.2% fairly consistently throughout lockdown, which is an incredible conversion rate for our kind of product. And that helps because the cost of getting traffic to the website is significant, so that directly feeds the bottom line. And the other stat that's been interesting that correlates with that one is we use Google AdWords for a huge amount of our traffic generation. That's where most people come into our site from, and we follow a number called conversion value cost in there, which effectively is for every £1 you spend with Google, how many do you get back in the till. And we can generally out of season hit a number about 8 or 9, rising to 10 or 12 in peak season. And we've been at sort of 14, 15,
Really?
Which is phenomenal because it makes the cost of doing business so much cheaper. And that basically tells you that there's been a different type of behaviour from customers, that if you've got it, they just want it. So they're spending less time browsing and thinking and more time just getting it bought.
And did you change them? I mean, obviously you have the KPIs in place, but did you change your focus on those, or were they the ones that you've just stuck with and they're still the right ones to measure now?
They're still the right ones. Like our main KPI that we really run the whole business by is contribution per order, that we sort of wrap a number of other things up within contribution per order. And we break that down by brand because we do a lot of brands, and it's important to have a handle on which ones are working. So essentially take the gross profit, take off the cost of advertising for that particular brand, take off the cost of shipping and packaging for that particular brand, and divide by the number of orders and work out the contribution per order per brand, so that we can assess performance and also allocate stock budget accordingly. And that really is how we run the whole business, and that one has remained constant throughout this, but it does mean that we've put way more budget into stock on brands that are performing when we can get the stock. And some of the other brands that are very slow, we've stopped buying completely during the period.
Yeah, it's really interesting in terms of it allows you, as you're just kind of coming on to those, measuring those things, allowing you to make the right decisions about what you buy and what you don't buy, and how your business performs has changed the result, I assume.
Yeah, you've got a colleague who says what gets measured gets done. Give Andy a plug, and he is dead right. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, that's the whole point. That's why we talk about these type of things, because it allows you to, if you measure it, then it allows you to make changes to your performance, you know, hopefully, if you're doing it properly and looking at them. So I think it's important to kind of focus on that, you know, it's not just the measuring. You measure it and then it tells you something, and you can kind of improve things as a result of that. Louise, what about you? Do you do a similar sort of thing? Are you different?
You know the answer. Yeah, as Dan goes like this. No, I don't. I'm the opposite to John. Unfortunately, I would love to be even a 5% of John. The girls will laugh. I'm a visual person. I see it on the shelves, and I see it when it isn't on the shelves, and I just buy what I love, and I hope people love it too. And I'm just not a spreadsheet girl, I'm afraid, and never have been. I buy in a very different way, and I can't change that. I'm just not a figures person. I just don't do it. But I love paperwork, which is really weird.
I have no sense of taste or style, so if I buy without a spreadsheet, I buy the wrong stuff.
We'd make a great pair, you see. Look at what a business we could have, John.
Very true.
Yeah.
Strategically, you do things differently. In terms of your stuff, Louise, I know you do measure some things, you know, so it's not completely haphazard. But do you do things like website traffic? Is that something you would look at? You know, other things, perhaps non-monetary measures?
I look at all that on the back end of the website, but it doesn't really interest me, I'll be perfectly honest.
Okay, fine. Yeah. But I know you do, like, you know how you've done last year and this year, and
Of course, yeah. And maybe if I was, if things weren't going well, then I would look a little deeper, I think. But so I'll probably be doing a lot of it in the coming months.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's we'll come on to that topic, the future, I suppose, and what we think what that might look like. So I'll just go back to you, John, and your kind of more strategic approach on kind of the numbers. If you had kind of, you know, if looking at other people listening in, if there was kind of 3 or 4 kind of top KPIs that you use, or you know, you think are your most important ones, would you have a list of those? What you would say those are?
I think the shop is relatively simple through the door. You know, that there is a lot less you can measure and count there. Essentially, you've got your turnover, you've got your footfall, and you've got your customer count, and you can kind of turn those into a few different ratios. But yeah, there's not a lot else you can measure there. The web is far more complicated because you've just got number after number after number. But a contribution per order I find immensely useful because it wraps up so many different overheads and so on into it. In terms of the performance of your website itself, the traffic and the conversion rate are nice headline figures that let you know what's going on, and you can take a lot from them, because if you've got the traffic and no conversion rate, you're probably priced wrong, or you've not got the right information on the website, or whatever it may be. So there's a lot you can interpret from them, but definitely contribution per order is the one that I find I can make a huge number of decisions based on that number.
Yeah, that's good to know. And then, okay, so just moving on slightly from the numbery type bits, then did you change, I guess I'm looking at changes that you've made and, you know, how that might continue for the future. Did you do different sorts of marketing? You know, the shop was closed, you know, people can't come in, you know, have you used, if I go back to you on this Louise Festival, you know, have you used social media, have you used email marketing, website, what have you, is it different, or have you just carried on what you were doing before? What's your story on that?
We sent out more newsletters than we ever have time to do. So they proved very successful. We tried to target sort of goods and the market, but we were really conscious of the fact that we didn't want to feel as if we were exploiting the situation. We didn't mention the word coronavirus in any email, any newsletter, any social media at all. We didn't say COVID once. We didn't sort of say, you know, you're working from home, this, that, and the other. We tried to just do what we always do, really. Lots very colourful, very upbeat, positive, but really didn't want to be seen to be jumping on a bandwagon at all. It was really quite evident that I didn't want to do that. And in fact, the first newsletter we sent out, I had an email back quite quickly just saying what a lovely tone the newsletter was, which was, I mean, that's quite unusual to have somebody to take the time to do that. And that was great. And we knew then that we got it right. But we did a lot of rainbow themes. They tailed off a bit because then everyone started doing rainbow things, but we did hint at it. We hinted at it. But yeah, it was just, but they are time consuming, but the return was high.
So with the newsletter, if I just kind of drill down into that a little bit. So when you say a newsletter, is that kind of a letter to everybody on your marketing or on your kind of, you know, customer list that kind of showing your, you know, what you've got in stock and that type, you know, your highlighted items, that sort of thing? Is that what it is?
Yeah, we did new products to show people that we still had new things coming in. We did offers, we did discounts, they always work. Free shipping, which will work, but we did it across, not just to our customer base, we did it across social media as well to get new customers, and it did work. It worked really well. Yeah. In fact, I had we did an Instagram post this morning, or Lily did, about reopening, and I got a lovely comment on Instagram just saying that she bought from us online, she found us online, bought us online, and now she can't wait to come into the physical store, which just that one email this morning, that makes such a difference. I mean, just absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
When I talk about marketing normally, again, from an accountant's point of view, we talk about return on investment. So in terms of that, for you then, that must have been massive, the newsletter. Yeah. I mean, the cost of that, I mean, is relatively minimal compared. I appreciate time goes into it, but actual
there's a lot of time. They are time consuming. And I tell you what really hit home is when you've got staff working remotely, and it was just myself and Lucinda, who's normally sat next to me here. And when we're doing a newsletter, it is literally, you know, it's done, it takes time, and it's always it's a difficult thing to do because I'm going left a bit, you know, up a bit, round, you know, and doing that remotely, oh God, it is a pain. So it was time consuming, but it was worth it. You've got to put a bit of effort in, but yeah, and we've got to do more of them, and it shows we've got to do more of them. But you did not want to saturate that market because we all know how many emails we were getting trying to sell us stuff. You know?
So that's something you not perhaps learned or perhaps focused on a little bit more that you're going to take for the future. Would that be correct?
Yeah, definitely. We know we've got to do more marketing. It is the biggest thing that we have to invest in. But it was interesting because you could quantify this so rapidly. You know, everyone was sat at home. Nobody could buy anything anywhere apart from online.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, John? Did you do different things compared to normal, or was it, you know, business as usual from a social media marketing perspective?
Yeah, well, initially we actually reined back in slightly for similar reasons to what Louise was just saying. We didn't want to be seen to sort of be trying to profiteer from the situation or anything like that. And then as the sort of new normality of shopping online started to establish, we started to ramp things up again and reintroduce all this normal activity. And what we saw particularly was huge engagements with some of our social media stuff that normally if we get, you know, engagement of a sort of, you know, 100, couple of hundred, you know, we're delighted, that's a good result. We've had posts that have had upwards of 10,000 engagements, particularly on cookware branded stuff that are both brands and products that people were very engaged with during this time. And unusually for us that we do social media activity, but we struggle to get social media to convert into conversions on the website in a way that we can absolutely directly trace and say, yes, that was a positive return on investment. But during this time, those social media campaigns have definitely converted on the website in a significant way.
Do you think that's something you've learned and will do more of, or do you think that's something that's just of the moment because of the way the situation is? What's your assessment on that?
I think we don't know yet. We will continue to produce those kinds of campaigns that have been very successful in the latter half of lockdown. Whether they continue to get that kind of engagement, we will have to wait and see how the consumer sort of evolves and moves on.
Yeah. I
just want to probably touch on or finish on almost the online stuff, because you're both obviously got a really good online presence. So just for tips for people on that. So if I start with you first, John, in terms of if somebody's not quite up to speed on the online, but they've got a retail outlet, or perhaps they're kind of doing a bit, but want to move forwards with it, what would and you've been through this for and kind of built it up from nothing, so what would your tips on that be? Would you have any advice on how they should go about it?
We have always been our own website centric. We've never particularly done marketplaces, but I think cracking that now, if you're starting new, is probably very difficult, because there's a lot of very sophisticated operators out there. One thing we've done during the lockdown period was to list a huge number of our products that weren't on the website onto Amazon. We changed all our software platforms last year, including putting in a back office system that allowed us to literally list tens of thousands of products onto Amazon just like that, which was a long-term strategic plan for not our clothing side of our business, but for the homewares and housewares side. And we accelerated that as a result of lockdown, and it meant that an awful lot of products that weren't on our website were available to buy. And because of the lack of capacity at Amazon, even though we weren't particularly competitive on price, we'd got the only availability. So we moved from essentially zero turnover on Amazon to a six-figure sum in April, just like that. And I think that shows both the power of Amazon and the ease of getting up and running with it. And so if I was kind of coming at this fresh, I would actually probably look at marketplaces first and your own website secondary now.
Is it difficult? Sorry, I'll leave that question until I've got both your answers. So Louise, what about you? What's your strategy on that?
Well, our website is incredibly hands-on. It has been two girls really. It's been Holly and Claire, and it's a very personal thing for us, our website. Everyone who ordered, we had a personal message written on the order, even if it was just one line. And so it's quite different to John. We do sell on another platform called Crowther, which is a bit like not on the high street, but you have to have a bricks and mortar shop to be on there. That works very well for us. It's a very different way of working to the way we work on our website, but it did provide another stream of income, a bit like Amazon did for John, really, but probably not the volumes. But it was very good at directing a wider audience, getting out to a much wider audience too. But everything that we did was a personal written note, nicely wrapped, lovely sticker, time permitting. What we did find with this, with the initial month, was the amount of gifts that were being sent and that needed gift wrapping. Everyone wanted a lovely handwritten note, long notes to people, and handwritten, nice ribbons. Everyone wanted to send gifts, and that was pretty time consuming when you've got a huge amount of orders, but it was valued. I think our customers really valued that.
So if you had, if you were advising somebody on starting up, Louise, or kind of improving their website, what, would you?
Well, a website is a slow burner. It takes a long time for a website to take off. And in fact, I did speak to another local retailer who locked her door and just said, "Oh God, I don't know if I should get a website up and running," in sort of panic mode, really. And I said, "Look, it's not worth it really to try and do that so quickly, because it does take a long time." And I mean, I've had the website now for over 10 years and it's still growing now, but it does take time, and you cannot rush it.
I guess that's perhaps the difference between the two approaches that you just described, maybe. I mean, you're kind of that route, it's very personal and kind of almost non-marketplace based. So you're reliant on website traffic and generating that traffic and people knowing about you, which I imagine is a really tough thing to kind of generate. How did you, we'll touch on that because I think it's important. How did you do that? How did you kind of build the brand and build the knowledge of the website? Was there anything specific that kind of worked for you?
Yeah, we try and have things that nobody else has, really. And if they're looking for them, then there isn't, the competition is a lot less.
Right, okay.
So that is it. That's what it boils down to. We try and I always say we're a bit like truffling pigs. We go around Europe just trying to find stuff, to find beautiful things that nobody else has. And when they start to become popular because a website opens, we do all the hard work and it's very easy and we all do it. You look at everyone else's websites and you go, "Oh gosh, that's nice." And it's so much easier to just contact the supplier, whereas, you've spent a lot of money finding it yourself, but that's how it works. But as soon as a brand becomes very, very popular or it floods the market, then, we try and be on to the next thing. So we're always trying to have those unique products. But then again, the downside of that is nobody knows they want it till they see it. Yeah,
true. I guess it's, and that, perhaps if it depends maybe on your product mix, on the style of retail outlet that you run, as to perhaps which option is going to work best for you, isn't it? Whether it's going to be kind of the mass type Amazon type sales, or whether it's the unique kind of website kind of following and traffic. Would you say that you would structure your approach depending on which one of those fit best? I would guess. That you say, John?
Yeah. I fully agree with that. I think the point a minute ago, a website is a slow burner. It takes a long time to get known, to get the traffic, to get the reputation, and I think you have to have a niche to get a website to work.
Yeah.
That's where we've very much focused on our country clothing. That it's a reasonably large niche, but we can be a reasonable sized fish in a fairly small pond with that. And what we've done with Amazon recently is completely the opposite to that. We've taken advantage of market conditions where there was a lack of supply and a huge demand to be able to get some very quick wins there. And that's where I think you can get quick wins with the marketplaces that you can't get with your own website. But the flip side is you'll only ever make a relatively small margin on the marketplaces. By the time they've taken their chunk out of it, and because of the competitive nature of it, there's not a lot left for the retailer. Whereas on your own website, particularly if you are selling more unique and sought after products, there's more margin to play with it over the longer term.
Yeah, yes, makes sense. So I guess we've gone kind of talked about the website, and because I think it's important to focus on that a little bit for kind of today. But if we just touch on now where we are as a high street and retail outlets right now. So John, I know you guys have opened. How's that gone for you? What's been the verdict so far?
We've been open for 3 days. There have been 3 reasonable days in terms of takings. They're all on a par with what we would normally expect for this time of year, which is pleasing. I think the worry is that that's been taken from a very small number of customers, but those that are coming through the door are in town for a reason and are spending. The the town is definitely quiet overall. And the general consensus seems to be that this will be the busiest week, and it will settle out at a lower level. And everyone I sort of talked to retail-wise it's kind of a case of, well, where is that lower level going to be? How much below what we were taking previously is the level at which high street business is now going to settle out?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's. I guess you're right. Yeah, it makes sense that the people who are out in town shopping are there to spend. So maybe you've got less kind of perusers and more kind of actual spenders in the shop. Because I guess they would be there for an actual reason as opposed to just look around in a large part. So it'd just be interesting to see how many of them will be around. But I know for you, Louise, we've almost got a live feed, haven't we?
If you see my eyes are constantly there, it's because my CCTV is next to the monitor, and I keep doing, I'm doing that because I'm just watching how people are ignoring all the stickers on the floor, going the wrong way around the shop.
Because you've literally opened as we've been doing this, haven't you?
Yeah, well, I was on here before we opened, so I've got only one member of staff in who's unfurloughed from today, and she's
right.
And I'm just, it's fascinating. I've got enough hand sanitizer to pickle the whole of Ledbury, and it's fascinating just watching it just shows it doesn't matter how much work you put in, everyone will just ignore what you've done, really. No one's following my arrows. I've been open about, well, I don't know what the time is, Dan, but I've been open for as long as we've been on here.
Yeah, so. We're getting on about, getting on for an hour. You've been open. Have you? And how's it been? Have you had many people in that you see?
There's been plenty of people in. I can't see the till from here particularly.
No.
I'd have to be like this, and that might be a bit rude, but. I have spoken to a lot of retailers in Ledbury this week, and they've said that everybody coming in has come in for something. They have come in and said, have you got? And they've been waiting to get it. And in a way, that is really what you want, because at this moment in time, I don't know how many sort of browsers I want. I want people who know what they want, just to keep the football quality, not quantity, isn't it, at the minute?
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, as I'm just watching, it's not raining now. It's stopped raining. That's going to help.
Good. What's your view, kind of, on the outlook then for this? What I know it's all estimating and predicting. But what do you have you kind of got your thoughts on it, Louise, on kind of where we go?
Yeah, I have, unfortunately. I mean, for me, and surprisingly, the last 3 months have been a pretty boom time, really, for me, and it's been great, and it's been very positive, and we've worked really hard at it, and the staff have worked tirelessly. I mean, they really have gone above and beyond.
Yeah.
But that's, being the small team, it's great. I've still got staff furloughed, and we're going to come back running on a minimum. I think it's now the tough time for me now starts today.
Right. Okay.
It's today.
So from being open, it's going to be a struggle, you think? Yeah,
I think it's going to be pretty tough because now, you've got the web sales have dipped because people can now come out. But there's a huge amount of people very reluctant to still come out and shop, and I fully understand that. I mean, I am still reluctant. I did not want to open today.
Right, okay.
I was still putting it off, even last night, but I'd committed last Sunday to putting all over social media that I was opening on Friday, so I had to do it. But I would probably still, I'd have another week or two if I could.
Are you working on reduced hours, or is it open as normal? What are you?
Open as normal.
Open as normal.
I think we might close at 5 instead of 5:30 to do a deep clean each night.
Okay.
But at the moment, I'm going to see, because it's such a difficult one to call. Ledbury is a lovely market town. We rely on a lot of tourists, a lot of visitors. There are no coffee shops to sit in.
Yeah.
The holiday homes and caravan sites haven't got anybody in them. So it's going to be interesting to see who's coming through the door. Is it all my locals? which I have seen several this morning on CCTV. So
yeah.
I don't know who my customer's going to be for the next couple of months. Yeah.
What about you, John? What's your kind of outlook? What are your predictions or opinions on it?
I saw an interesting quote from Theo Paphitis that he said this accelerated the move to online by 5 years. And I think, talking to various people, everyone says, yeah, it's at least 5 years. It's whether it's only more than 5 years. And for us, it's a case of where does it settle out? Where does that full level off in terms of turnover? Is it enough to keep us and all the shops around us going? Bearing in mind the high street was kind of struggling before this. If it's moved, say, 20% of what was being spent on the high street permanently to online, it makes the outlook for city centres, pretty bleak. And so there's going to need to be a lot of government support and long-term changes to keep everything open. Like for us personally, well, if it is that it stays online, we're in a good position to go forward with that. And, we're very much committed to our physical high street retail presence in Widemarsh Street. But whether it will look quite the same in the long term, who knows? We started on a 5-day a week rather than 7-day a week opening. We're closing at 5 to allow cleaning in the last half hour rather than 5:30. And actually, in the long term, opening 5 days instead of 7 makes rotoring and staffing and holidays and all that an awful lot easier to manage. We could get by with, a lot less people, particularly the part-timers, if that was the long-term outlook, which isn't particularly the direction we want to go in, but it does make the business simpler to run. So there's an awful lot of things up in the air depending on just exactly what we experience in the coming weeks.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Knowing both of your locations and shops, they're very much geared up for a shopping experience. So for customers to come in and enjoy the experience of shopping as opposed to being out there just to kind of get whatever it is that they need. And there's that different mix, isn't there, of shoppers and how they do things. Some people go out and do it because they enjoy it, and some people go out just to get the things that they need. And the city centres need kind of a mix of everything. But if not, if it starts to die in the city centre, then some shops, then it affects the ones that are going there for the experience, because there's not enough for the experience to kind of for it to work, is there? So it's a tough one to kind of know where that's going to go. And I think you're right. It's just we're going to have to kind of play it by ear and see how this affects everything. We've got a little bit of time to go on that, I think, haven't we, before we can really work that out. But I think that your quote that you mentioned there, John, is absolutely relevant. I think everybody has to be considering their online presence at the moment in the retail sector. My opinion is that anyway. And fortunate for you guys, you've got that in place. It sounds like you both have a strategy to push that to the forefront, perhaps even more than you planned to before.
Yeah.
So and in terms of then kind of for the future, I suppose, if I asked for your kind of what you're focused on, or what perhaps your tips would be to other people. If I start with you on this, John, in the retail sector, would you have anything that you would highlight at all, that we need to focus on?
I think our focus at the moment is very much on don't always do what you've always done, because we've learned a huge amount through the time that we've been closed. We've managed to improve and identify further improvements on efficiency and so on. So our immediate sort of objective as we get back to sort of normal is to make sure that we don't just go back to normal, but we actually learn from what's happened during lockdown, and that we are much more efficient as we go forward. In the longer term, we're very definitely going to keep a very close eye on how we are moving forward our web business, and particularly the overall cost base of the web business. That even though we're saying effectively the web is the future, actually it becomes more and more competitive every year, the web. And so driving down our cost base per order for the web is something that we're very focused on. That, you know, right now we're getting a bigger contribution per order than we've ever got, but we're well aware that the overheads on that keep going up as well. And actually the tax regime may well get changed as a result of some of this in a way that doesn't favour online retailers. So we've got to make sure we're able to be efficient to stay competitive there as well. Because, you know, whilst I've been talking about how Amazon is sort of great, it's also the enemy as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. The online thing is, the competition is everywhere, isn't it? Where, you know, it's not quite the same when you're based in a retail space in a town or a city. It's your competitors, your local competitors, as opposed to everybody. What about you, Louise? Do you have any tips or anything that you would say?
I would say that we are still very heavy on customer service, and we've got to keep that up and increase it. Really, that is probably our USP. We really love to find unusual things, which I'll keep doing and keep working harder at. But customer service, absolutely, to the nth degree. Just the online can't do that. It just hasn't got that personal touch. And that I really noticed in lockdown, which I'd never really appreciated before. Online is very one-dimensional. It's a very different mindset than running a shop, a bricks and mortar shop, where you have a box arrives, you hold it, you know, you price it, you display it, you're buying it, you're curating a collection, which you don't do so much online. Online is very different, and I really noticed that. I'd never noticed it before in 10 years of never having just, you know, the carpet whipped under you with the shop and just focusing on online. It's so different. You buy differently. You're looking at it very differently. You're analysing it in a far more monetary way than you do the shop, which is a visual thing. The shop is all visual, and online, although our website reflects our shop very much so, which is why, you know, we can't go down the Amazon route, because that's just not us. It's still not got that hands-on. It's a very different way, and I don't know if I could sit. I think I would miss the shop terribly, really, although you do have to have a shower and do your hair for the shop, and you don't if you run online, which is a major plus. I must admit, I did love that. So there is always a benefit of just sticking on the same clothes every day and putting your hair in a ponytail and not bothering. But I would miss the shop so much. But I think it is going to be really tough out there, but we've got to just focus on the shop is customer service. People want to see a smiling face when they walk in. They need this interaction. And I meant to say earlier, actually, right in the very first conversation, the first question you had, to going back to how important that is to people, because the phone, for the first month of lockdown, especially the first 2 weeks, the amount of phone calls I had placing orders, not online, over the phone, because they wanted to talk to somebody. And that you just can't get on it. You know, who's going to talk to you on Amazon?
You're right. I mean, it's the experience, isn't it? The experience of shopping in person compared to the experience of shopping online is like two completely different things. Although, you know, just picking up what you said earlier, you do try to kind of cover that, don't you? You know, by the personal notes and stuff. You know, you're trying to personalise that experience of shopping online with you, even though
absolutely
you can't. You know, or but there are some. You know, that does. I'm sure that makes a difference. You know, to have that hand, you know, written personal notes or whatever it might be. You know, it's a really good idea of kind of how you turn the experience of shopping online into more of an experience than getting a brown box arrive, you know, on your doorstep. So,
but then Dan, you've also got to get across that there was a human being at the end of that parcel who stood there and wrapped it. And I mean, God, Holly, who has literally wrapped every single parcel apart from the first week when Claire did it, who then had to be furloughed. But oh my God, I can't believe it. Her energy was just phenomenal. I mean, she was wrapping more than Christmas.
Yeah.
I mean, it was incredible, and still writing a note and still making it personal, because when that person opened that box, they had to realise that somebody had stood there and packed it. Yes.
It's a really good story. It's believing in what you stand for and what you do, isn't it? I think that's what it comes down to. You know, it's believing in what your business is all about, you know, and giving that experience. So I think that's a really good kind of lesson for people to kind of take away, and tip for people to take away on how they perhaps manage their online side of things. Okay, so in terms of, then I'm kind of getting to the end now. So I probably just want to ask a couple more questions in terms of then what positives. So I would like, and that those stories are both positive, so that which is great. But in terms of other things, I would like just to cover off is to try and see what positives we can take from the last 3 months. So if we go back to you, John, is that, you know, what positives would you pull out, or what things have you learned that you'll take into the future for the future of the business?
Well, I think one of the positives we'd pull out is certainly this week, customers back in the shop saying how much they've missed us, which is rather nice.
I was going to say the same. Exactly.
Including, you know, opening the doors myself at 9 o'clock on Tuesday morning, the very first person saying, oh, so glad to be back, which, you know, we were more than grateful to actually see them back. So I think that probably is actually one of my biggest positives, and gives me a bit of sort of faith and confidence in what we do for the longer term. Obviously, like everyone, we do have concerns over the longer term, and we're going forward very cautiously. You know, we're not going to be over investing in anything, and making sure that, you know, whilst I think there will be some really big opportunities out there for those that are brave enough to invest at the moment, you know, equally you've got to be cautious with that, to back the right horses. So yeah, we will take the right opportunity, but at the right time only.
What about you, Louise? What have you taken?
Yeah, the same as John, actually. I mean, as I say, my eyes keep going to the camera here, and I'm really encouraged by the footfall this morning, and people have missed us. We've had lovely emails saying how much they've missed us. We also did quite a lot of delivering locally, and a little bit further beyond, you know, physically getting in the car after work and dropping parcels off to people, putting it on the doorsteps, little trusty wave. And I really hope that continues, and that that people remember who the small businesses were that stepped up, you know, that could do that, and were at the end of the phone, and will continue to support us. I mean, we've seen that on social media, you know, with people delivering food and diversifying, you know, restaurants and cafes. And I really hope that there might be even a slight shift, even a little bit would make a massive difference if people just realised the difference when they spend £1 locally.
I'd like to think that's going to be the case, you know, and that the small independent retailers are going to be looked after, you know, because they've tried to do their best during this period. You know, you know, we'll all see whether that comes as you know, in the coming months. But I would certainly like to think that's how people will react, you know, once we get something back.
Can I just make a quick point that what we kept joking about the entire time these last 11 weeks, that we've been taking more money than Primark.
That is true.
It is true. Do you know what I kept saying? Look, girls, you know, we are making more money than Primark, and there's not many, you know. And next, we are way ahead of Primark.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's good.
So I just, probably wrap up there, guys. We've gone a little bit over the hour, but I wanted to keep talking because it was I felt it was valuable and we were still kind of getting good points. So first of all, I'd just like to take a minute to acknowledge you both and just say thank you for giving up your time, especially as you're kind of mid-reopening, Louise. And so thank you for giving up your time and the benefit of your experience and expertise on the topic. And to be honest, it sounds like you've both done amazingly over the period, and credit to you for what you've managed to achieve. I don't think it was luck, Louise. I think it was planning and hard work in the years beforehand that kind of made it not as bad.
I don't do planning. You know I don't do planning.
Maybe not planning, but there's certainly some hard work that went in, absolutely. So thank you, guys. Thanks both for being online and kind of answering my questions. It's been really interesting to get your insights. So
you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
I'll leave you both to it. So I will see you again soon.
Cheers, Tom.
Thanks, mate. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.